I'm a maniac. I get up every day and I want to do something. I want to win. I want to break a record. I want to beat this. I want to go to the next level every time that I get out of bed. And I I don't know how I retire. I don't know how I stop. It's just, I'm like obsessed with all of this shit.
Welcome to the Rolling Stone interview.
Thank you.
The first time we profiled you was in 2008. And that profile started with kind of a description of you. And it says, "The way things are going, Dana White, president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, may soon be hailed as the greatest sports promoter ever of all time, bigger ever than boxing's Don King, bigger even than pro wrestling's Vince McMahon." 18 years later after that, most of that has kind of come true. Did you ever see yourself at this point? Was that always where it was going?
If you separate me from the sport and the UFC, I mean, I always believed that the sport could be where we are today. This thing wasn't allowed on pay-per-view. We wanted to get it on free television. We spent $10 million to buy our way onto TV. Then that was to produce The Ultimate Fighter and air it on Spike. Then our first media rights deal is $35 million. We go from Spike to Fox for $100 million. We go from Fox to ESPN for $3 billion. And then we go from ESPN to Paramount for $7.7 billion. So it has been, that gradual climb and the sport. I mean, we're everywhere now. We're going to Azerbaijan again this year.
That Baku fight was great last year.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great event.
So the long-winded answer to your question is, I believed that the sport could be where it is today. And I always knew that I was going to be the guy to do it.
You started out as a boxing guy. I guess what captivated you about MMA?
The first time I had seen it was on pay-per-view, in '93 when the first one happened. Right. We all got together and watched it on pay-per-view. And then I sort of lost track of it. It wasn't until me and the Fertitta brothers started taking jiu-jitsu and we started to meet a lot of the fighters. And they were just so much different than boxers in a lot of different ways. Came from different places, had different backstories. And then we went to our first UFC event and we started going, imagine if they did this and imagine if they changed that. Mm-hmm. This could be big. And that was really how it all started.
You came up kind of as a boxing coach in Boston and New England. What drew you to boxing in the first place? What drew you to fighting?
My uncles, when I was young, used to put the fights on ABC's Wide World of Sports. And there was just always this energy and buzz in the house when the fights were on that I obviously became addicted to.
Yeah, I mean, there's an energy to combat sports that you don't get.
Yeah, and it wasn't just boxing matches either. It was like, Bruce Lee movies and Chuck Norris movies and, all the different martial arts that I was into all different styles of fighting.
Did you ever have any amateur bouts? I know that you trained as a boxer for a long time and you were coaching.
I did. And I had fights in Boston. I met a guy named Gary Brecka a few years ago and got into this whole health kick. At 54, I got in the best shape of my life. Then about a year ago, I started smoking cigars. I built a cigar bar at UFC headquarters. I probably have, if I smoked 150 cigars a day, I couldn't smoke all the cigars that I have. So when I get into something, like, I'm an all-in type of person, whether it's being good, being bad, or whatever it is. So when I first started boxing, and I believed that I wanted to do this, and I, wanted to win a world title and, all that stuff. And then at some point, I realized that I wasn't that guy, and there's no way that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I immediately shifted, but I knew I was going to stay in the fight business and be involved, just not a fighter.
It's like there's levels to this game, and there's like, how far am I actually going to go in this business? And I think, most of us reach that point and then go, yeah,
most
actually, I'm going to have to.
And I've seen people that unfortunately didn't make that decision and realize that it was never going to happen to them, and they stick around too long. And that story doesn't end well.
Has there ever been a fighter in the UFC where you personally were kind of like, we can offer you another fight, but I really think your time is
Tons.
Yeah.
Tons of, and then, even guys that were really good, but it's at the end. And I'm like, it's time for them to hang it up. They get mad and they get upset. And, some of these guys never talk to me again. And
I remember talking to John Jones backstage at the MSG fight, his last fight with Stipe, that he does not want fans' last memory of him in the ring to be sort of this broken, beaten down guy in the cage. Like, he was actively thinking about that as well.
Every fighter feels that way. Very few actually leave the way that he or George St. Pierre or, some of the greats have on so many different levels. Like, first of all, the money, right? One more paycheck. Let me get one more paycheck. Then it's imagine being at that level and walking out of the tunnel at MSG, with 22,000 people going crazy. And you don't know it's over until you actually get in there and you can't pull the trigger the way you used to. And
right.
And then, you get beat. And then some of the guys, Anderson Silva, guy whom he was always a unique individual to deal with, but he lost like 8 or 9 or 10 in a row, something like that. And that guy won't talk to me to this day.
Yeah.
Because I said, it's over.
Yeah.
And he was in his 40s. His thing was, who are you to tell me that I'm done doing what I love to do?
What do you say? What do you say to a guy like that?
Yeah. It's over. It's over. Obviously they could go fight. And he did. He went and fought a boxing match and he fought a bunch of other fights. He can still fight.
Sure.
You just can't do it here.
I wanted to ask, was there ever a moment in, the early days, either right off rip when you and the Fertittas had bought it, or, in kind of the maybe stagnant days of the recession and things like that, when you thought, hey, maybe this isn't going to work out, like this whole thing's going to fall apart?
The fight business is the toughest business in the world to be in. It is the hardest business in the world to run, to organize. The list goes on and on. It's easy to get into. The barrier of entry to get into this business is really easy, but to actually get in and run it and run it like a business it's almost impossible to do.
Yeah,
it's almost impossible. And if you look at the people that have tried to do it, competitors to the UFC, smart guys that have done very well in other walks of life, guys that have had unlimited money and just couldn't make it successful. When we were trying to secure a TV deal, when we were trying to get back on pay-per-view, when we were going through, all the commission stuff for sanctioning, and then, the day that Lorenzo called me and said, I can't keep doing this. Me and my brother keep putting all this money in. I want you to get out there and see if you can sell this thing.
When was that? I'm sorry.
It was pre-Ultimate Fighter, so it had to be, 2003 or 4.
Yeah.
And I started making calls that day. I called him back and said, you could probably get $6, $7, $8 million for it. And we were 30-something million in the hole. And he said, okay. We hung up the phone. And the next morning he called me back and literally said, fuck it. He said, fuck it. Let's keep going.
I guess the flip side of that question is, what was the breakthrough moment? What was the moment where, in this big roulette wheel that you're spinning for so many years, like, when was the moment when you felt like you hit?
I remember it like it was yesterday. So we financed the $10 million for the Ultimate Fighter to go on Spike TV.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the ratings on the Ultimate Fighter go just like this.
Yeah.
Now, at that time in the cable television world, if you had a show that was that successful, it was everywhere. It was on buses in New York. There were billboards. There were this, there were that. Nothing. Spike TV, flatline, nothing. And halfway through the season, the president of the network gets fired. Nobody's returning my call. I had to keep flying back and forth to New York. Um, it was an insane time when it should have been, holy shit, we should be cutting a new deal for the next season of this thing and for the UFC to be on Spike. None of that happened. It was the exact opposite. So then that night at the Cox Pavilion at UNLV's campus, the finale, the fight happens with Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a train was going through that place. People were stomping their feet and chanting one more round. And we went in and gave them both a contract. And I literally remember that night going, I don't give a shit if Spike signs a new deal or doesn't. This is going to end up somewhere.
Yeah.
And then that night, the guys from Spike took us out in the alley and we literally drafted a television deal on a napkin. And literally on a napkin, just sort of the bullet points of what a deal might look like. And then that was it. We were on our way.
I think of that, that's the beginning of the first, real era of the UFC. And then that really leads into kind of I feel like the middle era of the UFC, which again, kind of like you have these, not plateaus, like its trajectory is going up, but you have that spike with Forrest and Bonner.
Yeah.
And then you have, of course, the Conor McGregor spike.
Forrest comes off The Ultimate Fighter and is a huge pay-per-view draw for us,
Yeah.
So it starts with the Forrest. And at that same time when we did The Ultimate Fighter, you got Matt Hughes, you got Chuck Liddell, then comes George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, and then Conor McGregor comes in and, blows the whole thing up globally. Then you got Ronda, who introduces a whole new, group of people to the sport, including women. Joanna Jacek, who is incredibly technical and just a nasty, nasty little fighter. The women's boxing, was going on at that time, and it was always sloppy, no defense, and then think about this. So when people talk to me about the women, I'm trying to get the world to accept men fighting in a cage, right? Now you're going to have a woman pressed up against the fence, getting elbowed in the face. And I was just like, listen, my job's hard enough trying to get
Yeah.
And the women's boxing was sloppy, not technical. And then I end up meeting Ronda Rousey and I do the women's thing. And holy shit. I mean, these women show up. They're like unbelievable technique. It's crazy how good they really are.
Yeah.
And if you look at these women now that are in the UFC, it's incredible.
Oh, I mean, some of the best technical fighters that you have in the promotion right now are in the women's divisions. Yeah.
And at the same time that Ronda comes in, we end up finding Joanna Jacek, and she comes in and just, I remember the first time I'm sitting octagon side and I watched her fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. I never dreamed that women would fight at that level. She got done fighting. She went back and showered, got ready. I had her come back out and sit with me for the rest of the night. I just sat there and talked to her the whole night and watched the fights with her. Yeah. Joanna blew my mind when she came into the UFC.
Part of the reason that we're here today is you are doing this fight at the White House that is kind of a culmination of your relationship with another cultural and political figure who really comes into his own in the same era, who's Donald Trump. This is a man you've known for years at this point. What did you think when you're riding the high of this era of your sport and he tells you that he's going into politics? I guess what was your first kind of thought about this?
I don't know. It's funny because if you look back, there's lots of stuff on social media about him talking about possibly running, back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So it's always been sort of kicked around. But I think everybody felt like the likelihood of him winning was, impossible. Everybody thought it was impossible. And when he first called me and asked me, and this is how he is, he called me and said, listen to me, if you don't want to do this, I completely understand, but I'd be honored if you'd speak for me at the Republican convention. And literally everybody told me not to do it. Everybody told me, don't do this. Don't do this. And the two reasons were, number one, you don't want to get anywhere near politics, and your business. And number two, he's never going to win.
You've become pretty close personal friends since then, right?
We're really close. Yeah.
You're kind of one of Donald Trump's only real friends left. And that's not necessarily an indictment on the other people that are around him, but I think as his power has increased and his position has increased, a lot of the relationships I think that he finds himself on a day-to-day basis in are very kind of transactional.
Well, it's a friendship.
Yeah.
I don't want anything from him. I'm not looking for anything from him. I'm not, the transactional is the perfect word for it. There's nothing transactional between our relationship. We're friends, and we when we get together, it's literally no different than any other person in this room when you get together with somebody that you're friends with. You talk about things that friends talk about. I think when he is dealing with shit that I can't even dream of, and he wants to get away, he comes to a UFC fight. It's like you can tell the difference from when he first gets there to when he leaves at the end of the night.
Has he ever asked you to take a greater hand in his actual political work? Said, Dana, I need you in DC now?
Never. And he's never that guy that's like saying, hey, I need you to do this or I need you to do that. We don't have that kind of relationship. When we get together, we just hang out and we're just friends.
Yeah.
There's no again, going back to transactional, there's no transactional relationship with us.
You had those big high profile moments of introducing him at the conventions, but in between those, it like you've been very comfortable just kind of staying out of a lot of his business and the general sort of politics of him. I do feel like that kind of changed a little bit, and we've spoken about how that changed a little bit more in the 2024 cycle when you, I think, seemed like you were a little more comfortable utilizing the networks that you had built and the audience that you had built.
I know everybody leans on that one, but
Yeah.
I mean, he if you think about when we bought the company in 2001 and we did the fight at the Trump Taj Mahal, Trump brand, up there, UFC brand down here, he showed up to the first fight of the night and stayed till the last fight. And then we came back to the Taj again and he did it again. Then we left the Taj and we went to Meadowlands, showed up to the first fight of the night and was there until the last fight of the night. So our relationship was never any different. And I know people get crazy and like, oh no, you were, this guy is my really good friend. He has been for a very long time. And he loves coming to the UFC. Before he ran for president and when but why would I not make a big deal out of the sitting president of the United States coming to my event?
Sure.
If it was Reagan, Obama, Bush, any of these guys that show up, it's the president of the United States.
Yeah.
And what makes it even cooler is this guy's one of my really good friends, right? So why would I not? You can make anything overly political if you want to, but that is not our relationship. And even when I've spoke at these conventions or rallies that he did a rally at MSG that I spoke at. You never hear me talk politically. You never hear me say anything left, right, this, that. I'm a right down the middle, common sense. That's me.
Have you ever felt like that relationship has alienated any of your fans, has had any blowback onto, the business and the structure of the UFC itself?
I travel all over the world to places that are heavily liberal. Nobody ever has ever said anything to me negatively, screamed anything ever. I've never had any negative interaction with anybody anywhere I've ever gone in the world due to my relationship with the president. The exact opposite, to be honest with you.
I think that's interesting because what you say as well about the UFC fights being sort of an escape for him, it's kind of like the ultimate, use the term lightly, but safe space, in that he knows.
Well, he's human.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everybody has to remember that Donald Trump is human. And as human beings, we all need that. Whatever our thing is, you got a thing, she's got a thing, he's got a thing, everybody's got a thing. Again, whether it's a movie, concert, a sporting event, where you just go away and you can be a fan. I was with Connor Ben last week. He came to Power Slap, and he and I were talking about that. He just fought in London on the co-main event of the boxing card there, and he was like, "This is awesome to be able to sit here and just be a fan and watch something." As humans, we all do that.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump's thing is the UFC.
So tell me about this event that's happening next month at the White House. How did this event actually come about?
We're literally at a fight, and I can't remember if it was New Jersey or Miami. And he looks at me in the middle of the fight and says, "You know what? We should do a fight at the White House." And I'm like, "Yes, we should do a fight at the White House." He has this, that when you go to the White House, I don't know if you'll ever meet anybody more proud of the White House than he is. He absolutely loves that place, and he feels like it's America's house, and we should do things where more people can come to the, we being him, to the White House and be able to experience it. I'd never really been to DC before we did a fight night there. I'd never walked around DC. I'd never done. Now I've been to DC, in his 2 terms, a million times.
Yeah.
And it's a great city. It's a great city. Lots of things to see and do. And I always like doing destination fights. And I think for UFC fans, this will be the opportunity to do more, have more access to Washington, D.C. than you'll probably ever get again. So, and it's free.
The media frenzy around this White House fight has gotten pretty hot at this point. Donald Trump's overall popularity on the country is in one of the lowest points that it's been. Joe Rogan himself has kind of not necessarily criticized, but wondered about, the safety and security of going forward with this huge event, given, the national context of it. Was that ever like a concern for you? Have you ever kind of...
I went through COVID.
Yeah.
I went through COVID. Nothing like that ever concerns me. And listen, the world is a very rough place, man. There's always bad things going on. And I own a global business. Russia, Ukraine. I still have Russians fighting on my card. These guys are under contract with me, and I have Russians, I have Ukrainians, I have Israelis, I have Pakistanis, you name it.
Yeah.
I have them all on my card, and guess what? For the rest of existence, that stuff's going to be going on. And when you own a global business, you can't just bend and break and roll over for every bad thing that happens in the world. Because I guarantee you, a lot more shit is going to happen this year. And I'm not going to not run my business because of it. And to have the opportunity to fight at the White House, and we've already, we're in. We've spent, I got a claw being built right now in Philly that was sent over here from Belgium. And, they're building it, they're wiring it, they're testing it, they're getting it ready, and then they're going to put it on trucks and ship it to DC. And and as far as his popularity as a president and his policies, I mean, that stuff goes like this over a 4-year term for every president. But it doesn't change my relationship with him as my friend.
Do you think he needs this right now? It seems like,
probably not. I bet he probably wishes he didn't say that to me in wherever we were. But again, we're in. I mean, it's happening. The everything's in motion. So, I bet he probably wishes that this wasn't happening, but it's happening. I don't know. He's never said anything to me like that, but this guy's dealing with shit that people like you and I can't even imagine and don't want to. And we don't get into that kind of stuff. You have to understand, every time that I see him, I'm going to see him tomorrow. Every time that I see him, it's like if you run into your friend that you've been friends with for 25 years.
Yeah.
We talk about friend shit. Where I'm always going to have critics, and he's definitely always going to have critics, and it's part of life. It's just, I don't listen to any of that stuff. And it's like you just told me that he's that his popularity is that I don't know anything about any of that stuff. I don't pay attention to that. In Vegas, in our campus that we have there, I live inside this bubble, and I focus on my business, my employees, my family, my friends. I focus on my life and my world, things that I can control. I don't worry about things that I can't control.
There's never been a moment for you where something that he said or something that he's done where you, I don't know, it felt.
Oh, listen, I mean, at one point, did I wish he would stay off Twitter? Yeah. And the thing is that I'm the guy that's always walking around going, you don't understand. I challenge everybody. You can be as far left as you could possibly be. If I take you to dinner with Donald Trump for an hour, it is impossible for you to leave that dinner and go, I hate that guy. It's impossible. I challenge anybody. Kid Rock challenged Bill Maher, and it was one of the greatest nights ever. I'm glad that he called me, because he's like, Kid Rock calls me and says, hey, I need a favor from you. I set up this dinner at the White House with Bill Maher and the president. And as it gets closer, I'm freaking out a little bit. He's like, if this thing goes south, I need somebody there that can help me, whatever. So he says, will you come to this dinner? So I called the president and I said, hey, Kid Rock wants me to come to this dinner. I'm not just going to fucking show up because he told me to come. So I called him. He said, yeah, come. And it was incredible. Those two sat there, left and right, argued about things that they don't agree with, and they agreed on a lot of things, but it was a great dinner. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the way it's supposed to be in politics. If you're far left, you're far right, get together and talk about things. And because at the end of the day, we're not that far apart. We're all human beings, and we all want the same shit. It's just delivered in different ways. It's not like we all want completely different things.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking far off in the future now. The UFC's brand now has become so closely associated. I mean, the belt sitting next to you with the American flag across it, surrounded in diamonds, celebrating America's 250th anniversary. I guess, obviously, this event doesn't really come about if it's not for yours and Trump's special relationship. But say
this fight doesn't happen if it's not the 250th birthday of America.
Right. But say, I don't know, on the 275th birthday of America or something like that, and there's a Democratic president or in the office, can you see yourself having a similar, I mean, not the same relationship because you won't have been friends with them for several decades, but like a similar relationship with the president of the United States, the American government, if they want to come to UFC events?
So other politicians have said to me,
mm-hmm.
I would like to come to the event and I'd like to walk out with you. Like, no. This guy is one of my, I'll never do this again like this. But I guarantee you, I don't care who, I'm an American citizen, okay? And there's this whole political thing right now where when Biden was president, Biden is not my president. Now you got people, Trump is not my president. I got some bad news for you, everybody. If you are an American, whoever the president of the United States, whoever the majority of the people in this country voted in is your president. And if the president of the United States calls me and says they need something, consider it done.
Yeah.
I'm in. Democrat, Republican, the president of the United States calls me and needs something from me, you bet your ass I'm gonna figure out how to help.
Obviously, I think when you're young and you're striving and you're dreaming the business dreams that you have, you see yourself, you could dream of the UFC in its current state, right? Did you ever think that you would be in some ways sort of a power broker of one of the most powerful people in the world?
No, you never think, you think that you believe in your business, you believe in the sport or whatever it might be, but you never, I mean, I talked to the royal family in UAE. I'm super close to them. And the list goes on and on. I mean, I met with the prime minister of the UK last year. No, you don't see those type of things coming. It's, you know what I mean?
What's that feel like when you first, because
And to go back to when you were saying at the inauguration, I had arguably the best seats in the place. Literally sitting in front of me was Obama, the Bushes, the Clintons. Who the hell else was in there? Somebody else. Oh, Dan, the vice president, Dan Quayle was sitting to the left of me. I mean, literally, I was in the middle. And there's all this stuff online where people were like, look at Dana mad dogging Obama and all this crazy shit.
Yeah.
President Obama stood up to me and turned around and said, congratulations on all your success. And, you know, that could not have been a nicer guy. And there was none of that shit. There was none of that.
Yeah. So the last sort of big issue that I wanted to address with you is one that you've talked about a lot before, but I think is more relevant now since the big Paramount deal. Is I think the most common criticism of the UFC and of your business as a whole has been how much the fighters themselves get paid.
When people talk about that, you know what they don't compare it to? What a guy makes when he goes into his first boxing event.
Right.
The difference is because we look like, you know, we're a league or however you want to look at us. We're not a one-off promoter doing a fight, and there's some guys on the other. Some of these guys make $100 a round.
Yeah.
In boxing. And since 2001, the pay has gone like this. And if you look at the deal that we just cut, like you said, with Paramount, imagine how it's going to look over the next 7 years. Fighter pay has continually gone up every year, and it will continue to go up as long as we continue to be successful. If you come into the UFC, you know, let's say you sign a 3-fight deal, we're going to find out if you even belong in the UFC.
Right.
So I should pay you $370,000 to see if you belong in the UFC.
What is the sort of ballpark for the guys that are coming off Contender Series or get signed of, you know, ballpark of what someone gets for their first 3-fight contract?
Yeah, it's somewhere between 10 and 10 and 15 and 15.
Yeah. Do you ever think that you're going to increase that substantially?
It has
or
increased.
Is it kind of, yeah.
It has increased. The question becomes, you know, what do you pay somebody to come in and see if they're good enough to be there? What we've built and what we've done has been very successful. And guys make lots of money in the UFC. And there's a middle class in the UFC, meaning the guys, obviously the top 2 people on a boxing card make all the money, and the rest of the card makes nothing. Whereas at the UFC, everybody makes money.
How quickly do guys get into that
And
middle
I
class?
have almost 1,000 guys under contract.
Right.
So these guys have contracts. They're guaranteed. They have to fight 3 times a year, and they know exactly what they're going to get paid. And the other thing that is a fact is since 2001, even in the days when we were losing millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars, every fighter that ever fought for us was paid more than he was contracted to be paid.
How quickly can a fighter get into that middle class? I'm thinking of the guys like, Malcolm Wellmaker and then Ethan Ewing. Obviously, both those guys belong in the UFC, right? And so they're brought in early. How quickly can they get into that middle class money?
Yeah, well, it depends, how many fights they have on their contract. And then as they start to get closer to the end of the deal, they cut a new deal.
Yeah.
Well, think about this, right? So we do the Paramount deal, and We have almost 1,000 guys under contract. What do you just rip up everybody's contract and pay them all $40 million? Come on, man. I mean, a lot of this stuff is common sense. The money has gone up every single year since the day we bought this thing. We built it into a real business, into a real sport. And people can now, when we first bought this, there were guys that, basically most of these guys had jobs and they would train on the side and fight in the UFC. Mm-hmm. Now it's at a level where everybody is a professional athlete.
Part of the reason that you face these kind of questions and that you're confronted by these criticisms a lot, and the reason that I'm talking to you now is that for 20 years, really, more than 20 years, you've been kind of the singular face of not just the UFC, but of the sport of MMA as a whole. What comes next after that? What do you think happens to the sport of MMA after the Dana White era?
It's different. It's going to be a lot different in a lot of different ways. One of my big things about the sport is it's incredible on TV, whether you're watching it at home or in a bar, and the live event is even better, which is different, in my opinion, than some other sports. Like NBA on TV is brutal. You can watch it the last 5 minutes and, but go to an NBA game live. I love live NBA. Football on television on a Sunday is incredible. It's shot well. It's fun to watch. I don't like going to live games. I'd rather stay home and watch it. But the UFC is great on TV and it's even better live. The only thing that I can say is, and for so many different reasons, like I run this entire business. I make all the decisions, and I'm very involved from production to matchmaking to you name it.
How much longer do you think you're going to keep doing it?
I don't know. I don't know. I love it. I still love what I do. I'm actually putting more shit on my plate for whatever reason, I don't know, but I sort of have this idea of every way that you could possibly kick another person's ass, I'm getting involved in. And in the next 10 years, I'm going to build the biggest combat sports company ever.
That's the Dana White legacy, I guess.
I don't give a shit about legacy. I have these ideas of, like the UFC, and when I thought of Power Slap, and, now getting into boxing after, talking all those years. I have these plans and these ideas and things that I want to do, but I don't ever think about legacy or any of that kind of stuff.
So what's the point then? It's to build things while you're here.
That's what I like to do.
Yeah.
It's what I like to do.
You don't care if they last?
Shit. Well, will it last? Yeah. I mean, when you build something like this, to truly build something,
yeah,
and make something great, does it exist without you? Does it go on? Is it living 25 years after I'm dead? Mm-hmm. That I don't know. This is such a crazy, unique business. A crazy, unique business that is not easy to be involved in and not easy to manage and run. Mm-hmm. Like we started this conversation out. Lots of really wealthy, smart people have tried to get into this and compete in this space. And it looks easy and it looks fun. And people get into it because they love it and they're passionate about it. And then within 2 years, they hate it. They hate everything about this business.
Have you talked about some of this with Trump? Because I'm listening to you talk right now and I'm just thinking about Donald Trump and the way that he is publicly. And he also seems, I've never heard an idea sort of legacy described the way that you describe it, where you were like, I'm here to build as big as I can build in the time that I have here. Some of the actions he's taken, it's like, well, he can't really be thinking about his legacy. Have you ever spoken with him about that?
No.
It's just kind of a way that you both think about the world, I guess.
I don't know. I'd never really thought about it until you said it. See, I don't think about this kind of stuff. I don't think about it. It's like when you talk about legacy, you know how many book offers I've had? So I had this book offer, and the guy that was uh, going to write the book, travel with me for like 3 days and asking me questions about me. And then you're sitting there and you're like, well, then I got so fucking sick of talking about myself for 3 days. I said, I'm out. I'm done. I don't want to do this. I'll never do a book. Legacy doesn't mean shit to me. None of that stuff matters to me. I'm right here, right now. What are we going to do? What are we going to build? How big are we going to make this? And I have all these ideas and plans, and every day it's about implementing them. But the day that I decide to walk away, that'll be it. And then, I'll become psychotic about something else that I'll be into and focus on that. And then every time people bring up legacy to me, my legacy are my kids. My kids are my legacy and their kids.
I'm doing armchair psychoanalysis of you right now, but like it's gambling. When you're building these things, you're at the table, right? And
you're probably right.
Who cares what happens when you walk away, right? Because what what's the phrase? The action is the juice, right? I guess what do you get out of that? What do you get out of the numbers going up, the things getting bigger? For Trump, it's it literally started for him. The buildings going up, the cage over the South Lawn, like you were talking. I guess what keeps
the ballroom he's building? I mean, that's a big deal to him too.
What keeps you at the table?
Needed a ballroom for so long, but none of these other presidents knew how to build or to do anything. He said the renovations that I've made to the White House hasn't been done in 100 years, and it won't be done for 100 years after I'm gone.
I mean, what's that voice in your head that is not ever saying, all right, we've got the Paramount deal now. We've built something that'll last,
Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. That's not how it works. So we spent $10 million to get on TV with The Ultimate Fighter. First deal was 35, then 100, then 3 billion, 7 billion. When Paramount comes in and says, hey, we're going to give you a 7-year deal for $7.7 billion. Guess what? Now you got to prove yourself. It's not, the UFC is this big, Yeah, yesterday we were. What are we tomorrow and next week and the week after that? Now is the time that you got to roll up your sleeves and go to work. You got to go to work, and we have to achieve not only our goals, but Paramount's goals and what they want to do over the next 7 years with the UFC. And I love all these experts, right, that I see online. These guys must be brilliant. They have all the answers, on what we're doing wrong and what we should be doing and all this other stuff. These people have no idea. First of all, they know less than zero about the business, okay? Nothing about the business of MMA, especially my business and what I do. When we sold, me and the Fertittas, for $4.025 billion in 2016, everybody said, Ari overpaid. This isn't worth it. The blah, 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 blah. I'm not the guy, and all the shit that they've said. Well, look where we are now. Now the new narrative is Paramount overpaid, and it's not about, all right, that's awesome. We made it. We did a 7 point. No, now you got to dive in and you got to work harder than you've ever worked before, because now you have to deliver on both sides, and you have to deliver for Paramount. I'm here. I flew here today. We're doing this interview here today because I'm doing the Paramount upfronts tonight. Right? I am going to kick. Here we are. We're 6 months into the Paramount deal.
Yeah.
We are going to kick the shit out of this Paramount deal, and we are going to deliver in every way that no other sport would deliver for them. And they didn't overpay. That I guarantee you. And we will be the best partner that they've ever been involved with in the history of their fucking network. And yes, everything is transactional. And you have to get up every day in this business and be better than you were yesterday. It's just the way it is. And that's hard for some people. And, there's never that moment when you own a business where you go, We made it.
Yeah.
We made it. This is it. No. We got here. And now we have to deliver.
Yeah.
You're never on easy street. And these are hard, cold facts of reality that people have a hard time dealing with. And then what? And then, so we do all this stuff, and then I retire. And then what do? I'm a maniac. I get up every day and I want to do something. I want to win. I want to break a record. I want to beat this. I want to go to the next level. Every time that I get out of bed, and I don't know how I retire. I don't know how I stop. It's just I'm like obsessed with all of this shit.
You can't see a world where you're not doing this,
right?
Essentially,
right. Yeah. And I've seen people write stuff like, "Oh, he's checked out. He's this and that." You always get this negativity from, you're like, fighter pay wins fighter pay. It's always these criticisms about you and how you run your business. Yet look at what we keep doing every single year. You read me the first line from 2008 of the,
mm-hmm.
and just, this is how you have to be every day when you own a business. And I love the negativity and I love the criticism. It's sort of what fuels me and fires me up too.
Have you ever had a moment where you've like had to stop and take it all in?
No, I don't think so. Sitting right here, right now, talking to you about it, I don't think there's ever been a moment where I've, I'm always thinking about what's next. What's next? What's already happening is happening, right? What's next?
Dana, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always a pleasure to talk to you. Looking forward to this coming out. Looking forward to the fight in June.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.